There is a way to fix barometers, the mechanical ones that don't really move and kind of get stuck. This needle. The reason why it gets stuck is actually the needle sits on a very, very thin shaft, which you can perhaps see it here underneath the glass. So it goes all the way to the needle and then it goes down to the mechanism. And that shaft, if you can tell, it's passes through sort of brackets. So there is this support here and has a very thin hole in the center, and the small shaft rod gets through this hole. And what happens is these barometers sit inside homes. This is old units for many decades, and there is always humidity inside homes. And at least on this model, which is a German one, I think it's fairly quality one, that small rod actually got a thin layer of surface rust. It's just really because the humidity in the room over many decades. Unfortunately, for some reason, they did not use maybe stainless steel or maybe copper or something else for that rod. And it's really just bare metal, and it gets tiny amount of surface rust, and that rust actually starts rubbing around that hole in the bracket. And that very tiny rubbing is what causes the needle to get stuck, or at least sort of get stuck. Will take more, if you want, tension in the needle to advance to another point. And that's also why you perhaps remember grandmothers or so tapping on this to have the needle set to the correct location, because it's just stuck in there. Now, I did fix mine. It's working very nicely now. I can just tell you, I could tell it did swing really very far away, depends obviously on the weather, from about this location. I think it's, look past 30.5 around to just the opposite complete way, maybe even lower, like that position. So now it's working very nicely. I never tap on it, no longer need to do it. I also compare the value with the local forecast on internet, but also with my phone, which has a barometer. It's very accurate. I can tell you the actual numbers now are 31.2 local forecast on internet. So it's always accurate. However, what I actually did, so first, you notice this is a glass, and I can tell you at first I tried to break this glass. I just wanted to get rid of the glass to try to remove the rust on that part, but glass was incredibly strong. I could not even scratch it. But anyway, don't try that way. Also, if you look at the back, it's sealed. This metal enclosure, it's really kind of rolled around, so it's impossible to remove. And also try not to remove these screws there, because they secure inside the mechanism, and it's really difficult to try to put the screws back in place, and you don't anyway have access to the mechanism. So what I did is, you notice it has only one needle, the actual indicator, but most manometers will have two needles, the indicator and also the needle that you set by hand. And it has a center knob, that manual, if you want, needle. Notice it's missing here. And also notice that knob is missing, and notice perhaps you can tell there is a hole in here in the glass. So basically what I did is that manual needle had a knob that was securing it to the glass. It's not connected to the mechanism, it's just secured to the glass. I had to use brute force to kind of pop or remove by the mean that you could find, or depends on your model, that mechanical manual needle, the knob also as well, and that open just give access to a hole in the glass. So again, that manual needle and the knob that was securing it was, I think there was also a washer. It's gone. I'll explain perhaps in a moment how I did it, but it's risky, and that's why I say in the video title, difficult. Once I got access through a hole, you can tell at the bottom of this hole, perhaps there is the actual mechanism. Is like this is like where the indicator needle it's secure. It's like a round piece, but there is also, you can tell from the side, you can see inside. So what I did, I put it like this on the side, and I did use very light oil. If you wonder, I don't think engine oil will work. I don't remember exactly if I did watch wind up watches oil, which is a very, very light oil, thin if you prefer, or you can perhaps use sewing machine oil, which is also very thin. Why it's important to be thin? Because well, I'll explain perhaps in a moment. So what I did, I got a small amount, maybe a droplet, not even a drop, very small amount. I put that, and also, by the way, you can just maybe warm up that, maybe if you have a hair blower, warm up that droplet of oil, that small amount, so it's even more fluid. And I just let it sit on top of this center piece here. And because it was very, very fluid, it just ran down, and it ran down all the way onto the small shaft. And what the oil did on the small shaft, it's kind of, I don't know, lubricated that surface rust. It doesn't really remove the surface rust, but it kind of works on it, and it does also lubricate the contact point with the bracket center hole. So from that moment on, once the oil got in there, my needle started to, oh, by the way, I forgot to mention, before I did this, the needle was stuck almost all the times. It would barely move unless I would tap on the glass. So it was also very inaccurate. So there was quite a bit of friction in there. And from that moment on, once I got the oil basically to leak on the tiny, tiny rod and into the center hole there, because the gap between, if you want, the clearance between the tiny rod and the hole is very small. So if you get oil on the rod, also keep in mind that the gap is so small that the rust from the rod, it's touching the hole, right, the perimeter of the hole. So once you get oil in that area, it should get it running normally, the needle that is. I don't remember if it started right away or did I left it several days, I don't remember. Also very important to have it sitting flat like this, not hooked on the wall. Sit on the table so the oil can go downwards correctly. And again, from that moment on, maybe it took, I don't remember, just don't have that in my memory, but give it maybe a few days and hopefully it's going to work for you. Now, why I don't think a thicker engine oil, car engine oil, is much thicker than the sewing machine oil or watch, mechanical watch oils. I think the engine oil maybe is going to flow if you warm it up very nicely, but I'm not sure if it's going to do well there, because when it's going to cool down, it's a thicker oil, and maybe it will actually cause more friction around that hole between the tiny shaft and the hole. So that's why, if you want, go ahead and try. It's not really catastrophic. You can always, if you feel like the engine oil doesn't help, you can always pour 1 or 2 drops of alcohol, isopropyl alcohol. Try to find the higher concentration, 99, 95%. So that one does not have water in it, because water will cause rust there. So the alcohol, if you pour a little bit, 1 drop of alcohol, it should kind of wash off that oil if you need so. But ideally, like I said, try to find a very, very light oil. Maybe there are other kinds of oil I'm not aware which are very light. But this is what fixed it. My thing, it has been like this for a minimum 1 year and it's working perfectly. And also that oil on the shaft will prevent future rust, right? Because it's oil. Now, the way I did remove this knob here, I think I did insert something like a small flat sort of a fork piece underneath, because there is a knob with that indicator needle, manual one, and I did insert something underneath flat, not necessarily flat screwdriver, because there is no really gap in between the knob and the glass. but I did pry and I did just force. And I also, perhaps you can tell there is a dent in the glass here, so it is risky. It is risky. And also, yes, the needle is actually that I did remove, the manual one, it sits inside the glass, so it did fall down in there. So perhaps you can hear it. It's still, I don't know, it's hanging in there someplace. So it's important to, I don't know, hopefully when it's going to drop the needle, that is, the knob will come out from the top, but the needle will drop in there, so hopefully it doesn't get stuck in the mechanism itself. That I cannot ensure you. It's really up to you to, you know, have some luck, I guess. But yes, I had to pry it up, and it did kind of break that knob from the glass itself. So it depends on the mechanism used by other brands of manometers like this, barometers, but that's how I did remove that thing. So be careful, it's still glass, right? So don't force with pliers or so to remove that manual needle and knob to get access inside, but just be aware, that's the difficult part actually, that's the risky part, because you can crack the glass as well. So it works as it should work. Thanks for watching.